Hi, this is Alicia Bowling with Creative Laughter TV, Beyond Logic podcast. Today, our guest is a celebrity intuitive astrologer and hand analyst. She is featured once a month on E! Entertainment and does the gifting suites for all the award shows such as the Emmys, Golden Globes, and much, much more. Her gifts are truly different and unusual, and I'm very excited to introduce Lisa Greenfield. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Alicia. Thank you so much for inviting me to join you today. I've been looking forward to this.
I am so excited because you really are so different. You know, when you think of hand analysts, I know the entire world is going gypsies, crystal balls, and it's not like that at all. It's really fascinating. But before we get into that, I want people to know your background because your background is very different from a lot of other people. You actually did not start right away in this. You have a business background. So tell everybody about that.
Well, actually, I did start in this when I was 13 years old. I started reading hands because my brother brought home a book and from the library. We weren't allowed to watch a whole lot of TV, so we thought we were being punished. Little did we know we were being given the keys to the kingdom. So he brought home a book on it. I was 13. I thought it was a fascinating way to get to hold hands with the cute boys. So I was intrigued. And it's
like, girl.
Yeah, exactly. So I did everything I could to learn how to read hands in high school. But then I did get into the business world and started out in working with human resources and people. And it was, again, a great opportunity to take my love of reading, hands and pairing that up with all the people that were coming through as a way to really test what I was studying. Because I also started out pre-med, but I flunked out because of math. I had a math block. I had one math teacher who threw up his hands and he said, "I like you a lot. I just can't pass you," So it's like, oh my gosh. Yeah. So I was never going to make it in med school, but our brains are what create the lines in our hand. And so my fascination, my brain geekery, and my interest in other people all went with me into the business world. I started out in human resources, which was such a great place because from there I wound up working out into sales. And from sales, I just kept getting promoted because I was able to get into accounts that nobody else could get into because I would get to know the people in a very unique way. And have
starting out at 13 years old, that's kind of the age where you're like experimenting, trying stuff. So were you actually reading your friend's hand? You know how you set up a lemonade stand and you sell? Were you actually like maybe charging or trying to do
No, it's so funny. It wasn't until I was well into my 40s that I ever charged for a reading. I didn't care about making money. I was just incredibly nosy and curious about other people because I really could sense that even when people would say, "No, I'm not angry," it's like, yeah, you're radiating anger. But I could look at somebody's hands. I could look at these different avenues and help them understand because we don't always have perspective for ourselves. We're standing in the middle of it. So it's hard to see what we're swimming in. And this was a way that I could turn around and starting with the people closest to me and then moving out into clients, give them a perspective that wasn't judgmental about what it is that they're experiencing. So it's like, well, what about this? Did you understand that you're pulling in from this? When somebody's angry, it's like, do you know that anger consolidates you? It helps you build your courage so you can step up or draw a line, So where is it that you need to draw a line?
That is amazing, right? That is true. Some people just wait and wait and wait. They have to get so angry before they can speak their truth, which is amazing. So all the lines in your hands, they actually mean something. I actually had a reading with Lisa and I found it fascinating that, on this side is the relationship, this side is the children and the fingertips you were born. So tell everybody about that.
Well, all of the nerves in your hands link into the different regions of your brain. Like the left hand correlates with the half of the brain that does most of what we call the global processing, which means that there's no easy beginning, middle, and an end. Like, okay, how do you measure love? Do you know the exact second that it started? It's like, did it build? Do you know the exact moment that it ended? There's containers, there's an action or there's a word or there's something that will be a triggering event, but it's hard to measure those things. Those are more represented by that left hand. And then the outer side of your hand is where we tend to meet the world more, underneath the pinky. The thumb side is where our will originates, so that one side of your hand is really where we start to make our choices, or we let other people choose for us, when we've got a really small or a, poorly placed thumb. You were trained from childhood on to that other people got to make the decisions. And then your job is to learn how to step up and make your own. So,
and what about the fingertip lines? Because I remember you saying that those are the ones that kind of, build up in the womb, and
yep.
Those are your destiny.
Oh, I love that you referenced that. Yeah, what we've got in all of your hand, including the shape of it, it changes. As you think and act differently, you change your mind, you change the line, and you can even change the shape of your hand. I've had people show me, we've got the pictures. But your fingerprints are the one part of you that do not change. So they're formed when you're in your mother's stomach between 12 and 14 weeks. And depending on, what was going on with your mom and dad, left hand and right hand can tell you a lot. It has time to lay down more layers of fingertip. The more relaxed you were in the womb, the more layers you had a chance to build. Okay. The more stressed your parents were under, the less flesh there was on the tips of your finger. So it forms different prints. And those prints are carried with you your entire life, short of criminal activity, acid etching your fingertips off, or
does that stuff show in your hand?
Criminal activity, the inclination to cheat is absolutely there in your hand. It's kind of like a triangle of things where you've got, actually higher IQ people are more likely to cheat because they can rationalize it better.
Oh, that's funny.
So, yeah.
And also, we talked about the star in your hand. For those who could win the lotto, and only a specific amount of people have that?
Well, the star doesn't absolutely mean lottery, but the star is something, and it depends on where, because there's 6 points that are there in a star. And it depends on which way the stars, the lines are pointing as to what it pulls in. For some people, the star could indicate, because it pulls in that Mercury, so communication. So it's somebody whose communication could wind up in the public eye. Now, depending on what else is going on in the hand, you want to see how that's supported, that star. But it can be incredible good fortune. It can also be incredible notoriety. So it's like, ooh, so, somebody who, their speech winds up in the public eye for a reason that you don't like could also be a star. So you have to see what else is going on in the hands. But yeah.
So is that a very rare marking in the hand?
Gift markings are much less common. They're usually less than 20%. And some gift markings are even rarer, down to like 4 to 7% of the population. So,
oh, wow.
And yes. I was going to say an interesting fact is the M, which used to be much less common. It was really only about 13% of the population that had a clear M that was formed by their heart line, their headline, and their lifeline, with another line called the fate line. That's, the vertical line. Well, that used to only be about 13% of the population. But in recent years, more and more people are showing up with that. So it's actually shifting.
Is that because as a collective group, we're getting more spiritual, or we're looking for something different?
Well, here's the good news and the bad news. A gift marking, a gift marking always means that you bring a little extra to it. And this is the ability to line up your intuition, your heart, your mind, and your actions in a way that's easier to create. So you have an easier time manifesting or making magic happen, if you will. In other words, we're not quite so mind heavy. The downside of that is we're living in very interesting times, in case people haven't noticed, and there's a lot of global change. And so what I believe is that we've got more people that are being asked to call on that magic within them to create a new reality, because circumstances are very uncomfortable in a lot of different ways.
And that brings up another point. You are an amazing astrologer, actually an intuitive astrologer. So how does the astrology and the hand analyst kind of go together, and the intuition? Because I do know that definitely helps with time and definitely with the predictions. Am I correct?
Oh, I love that you asked that. See, your grasp of this, you are a lot of fire and you're a magician too. I know that. I've seen your hands. So yes, love that question. What I loved is when I was 27 years old, I was working with Disney Studios, and one of the key people there was the most interesting woman. I mean, she's like that one beer commercial. She's the female equivalent of it. I mean, she literally had lived this life you wouldn't believe. She is the one who decided, when I read her hands, she goes, "What do you know about astrology?" And I said, a little bit, and like sun signs and what have you. She goes, no. She goes, "I'm going to teach you astrology." It's like, I would have let this woman read me the phone book. So it's like, okay. And she taught me astrology, and I was floored, because then I went back to my research on the hands, and the astrology maps out in your hands. It's an incredible correlation. It's not exact, but it's enough of an extension that it's incredibly powerful. And it really just gives you, it's like psychology is an update of mythology. We're still just trying to tell stories about ourselves that help us understand. And the astrology and the palmistry, the stories go together. They really help flesh out how we understand ourselves.
And when did you come into your intuition in a way that now you're really using it with these two as a tool to really get all the information you need?
I have to say, the intuition started really making its presence felt when I was about 38 to 42, which is typical. That goes with your Neptune return. So I started feeling it then, but it isn't until the last few years. What I want people to understand about their intuition is it's not always a comfortable place to play, because it feels very out of control. It's one of the reasons why people will overeat. It's one of the reasons why people will watch binge TV or drink, because they're trying to numb all of this input from other, sources, outside sources, feeling what other people feel, and that pressure, because it's like, oh my gosh, you don't necessarily have the ability to affect what's going on out there, but you're picking up those feelings. So intuition can be a very tricky place for people to play. What we need to know is that, and that's what I love about the hands in astrology, it helps us put a container, a beginning, a middle, and an end on how we're uniquely wired to deal with our intuition in a way that serves us and the people around us.
That's funny. You just talked about, sucking other people's energy. I used to do this thing all the time, especially at Christmas time. I'd watch these Hallmark commercials, and then I would start busting out crying. I'm like, what's wrong with you? I'd watch animal commercials, and I'd start crying. Mm-hmm. And then I found out I had Cancer rising, and they said, oh, you're very emotional. You suck things in. So it really is amazing how when you learn these things, how it really does kind of correlate with your story.
Yes. Again, it helps us understand ourselves. It doesn't decide anything. Anybody who's trying to decide something for you, going, well, because of your astrology, you're this, I beg to differ. One of my favorite examples of that is they had two different well-known astrologers read somebody's blind chart. And Neptune, which is that watery, intuitive, addictive, but also that oneness and that, universal thinking. Neptune was in a really interesting, challenging place in the person's chart. And, both of them said, oh, there could be problems with drinking or drugs, money could be a challenge, all of these different things. They did the traditional astrology, the approach, without the intuitive sense of it, and with a little bit more of what we do, the predictive. Oh, it's fatalistic. It's this, therefore this is going to happen. And it turned out that person that they were reading for, she wound up getting an off-Broadway show of playing Janis Joplin, somebody who is known for drinking and drugging. And it was her best year ever. So it's all how you use the energy. It doesn't,
actresses, mm-hmm. actresses and actors love this stuff. This is their thing because, they're insecure. It's hard. You get a job here. You don't get a job there. So I know that you work in the gifting suites with all the celebrities, and I find that so cool. So tell us a little bit about that. What kind of celebrities you get, and, what kind of information they're so dying to get.
Oh, well, the creatives are storytellers. And one of the reasons why I resonate with them is because when I'm looking at somebody's hands or I'm looking at somebody's chart, I'm just telling a story. So what the creative people, the celebrities and the artists that I read for, what they are is they're storytellers. The challenge with that is what they like one day, the audience will love them for one thing. You do the exact same thing someplace else and suddenly they don't love them. It's a very fickle thing, and it's a challenge to put your creativity out there and have it voted on publicly and have to take that feedback, particularly
Right.
because these days, haven't you seen some of the internet trolls that are so angry and hurt?
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the creatives, they're just looking for that validation and a container for all of that creativity. So what I've found is the difference between some of the people that I read for that aren't celebrities and the people that are celebrities are just the level of comfort with risking your creativity. That's courage to put yourself out there because it's amazing what people will pick at. And that's why I give them a lot of credit. Now, some of them handle it with more grace than others. Some of them become very, entitled or diva-like. I've seen some real diva behavior in the gifting suites. And just so you know, I have to call the work that I do before the Emmys, I have to call it the pre-awards gifting suites because the gifting suite that I work with is not the official Emmys gifting suite. And she can get in trouble if we say that it is. So I just do the pre-awards before the big television awards, but it's funny. Again, territory in Hollywood, and you've got to, go by the rules and play fair. But
Right. And speaking of Hollywood, oh my God, look how it's blowing up.
I know.
It's crazy, right? Astrologically, what the hell's going on that's making all these women come out and men come out and just like everything's blowing up?
Yeah, there's, our outer planets have been because of the Uranus Jupiter opposition, in Aries and Libra. It's all about this has been going on for quite a while. Almost a year. It's just wrapping up and moving off of it now, but it's been completely revolutionizing how we do relationships. So what's happening with that is the balance of power is shifting, and it can't be, too dominant in any one direction. And it's actually a really tricky, this is why I referred to the M in our hands. This is some of what we've got to create something better than just punishing the bad people. It's got to be getting to the underlying cause of what created that disharmony in the first place.
Right. So with predictions, you and I have spoke about this before. People can predict, but they can come true. They could not come true.
Yeah.
And what is the deal with that? And, when people say, well, it didn't come true. And then 5 years later, it came true in detail.
Yeah.
So
I love that I love that you brought that up because that is such a thing. You have to know, yes, we can see probable futures. And I want you to understand the key word there is probable. When somebody's sitting in front of me in that moment, I'm looking at their chart. I'm looking at their hands. I can make predictions based on what they're doing right now. But the very act of seeing it means they then interact with it. They can dial it up or they can dial it down. It's not an absolute. It's like, I see it, therefore it will happen. And anybody who says that, they're invested in their ego. But
Right.
but we interact with it. We create it, including we create the opportunity to have the reading so that we can get the information. Like one of my favorite stories is I had a client come to me, an artist here in town, beautiful woman. She was very excited because, everything that we looked to an amazingly abundant year, that she had all kinds of opportunities coming her way, including some new relationship opportunities and work opportunities. Well, she went away 2 months later. She was having just a little too much fun and got carried away, didn't make the best decision, got caught driving under the influence, and they yanked her license. And, 4 months after that, she called me 6 months into it. And she goes, nothing's happening. Nothing in the reading is happening. Nothing that you saw. And, I said, well, what's going on? Well, she had shut herself in the house. She was so embarrassed. She was so ashamed of herself for doing that. She wasn't going anywhere. She was having her food delivered. She literally hadn't left her house in like 8 weeks. And I'm going, well, short of a FedEx man coming to your door, I can't make it happen. You can still arrange to have friends pick you up or get transportation to things and go out. You still have to invest yourself. It doesn't just magically drop out of the sky because we see it.
Yeah, that's funny. That reminds me of the line. This is Elisa's favorite line. If you change your line, you change your mind. And does that mean you change your fate? Because like you said, if you're not putting yourself out there, if you're locking yourself in the house, you're just going to work every day. Well, how are you supposed to meet Mr. Right? Or how are you supposed to get this opportunity if you're not open?
Yeah, this is where I really want people to understand that fatalistic thinking, where it's like, oh, we're doomed. It's going to happen. It's like, that is a very frightened place to operate from. And I understand it. You don't know what to do, so you do nothing. But the fact is, we absolutely have to create, and when I say create, I mean choose something that's aligned with you. And that's rather than something you think you should do. And the yes for you will always make you feel lighter, even if it's a hard yes. It always makes your head goes up, your shoulders go back. It's like, you feel that gut, that's a yes for me. And a no, even if everybody else swears it's the right thing to do, will make you feel tight and contracted and kind of squirmy. It's like, that kind of feeling. So it's like you have to create your day, and a reading would never, ever replace your yes or your no.
Oh, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
You've read so many famous people. Do you have any fun stories you could tell us about people that were exciting to read and then the scariest one ever?
Oh, absolutely.
Because those are out there.
Oh, absolutely. The scariest ever was a 16-year-old psychopath, which unfortunately it was my friend was with me and she saw me do a reading for him. And she goes, I've never seen you give so short a reading and get away so fast. What was it you weren't telling me? And I said, actually, I said psychopath, but the truth is sociopath. I said, you know what? He scares me. I said, he has absolutely no capacity for empathy, no recognition of other people or other people's feelings, that was there in his hands. And I'm not going to tell you what I saw because people will be looking for that. And it's extremely rare and it's misdiagnosed. But anyway, so it turns out she called me a year later and she goes, you're never going to believe it. He was sent to jail for burning down an apartment building. Luckily, nobody was burned alive. And I'm going,
geez.
Yeah, that one, he's one of the few people that have ever really scared me. But the person who was very uncomfortable to sit with, but was brilliant, was Quentin Tarantino.
Wow.
I will just say that his mind is a bad neighborhood that sometimes he can't get out of. Luckily, he translates it and puts it on paper, or on film. So,
well, that kind of shows from his movies.
Yeah, his mind is noisy. His mind is very noisy, but he's brilliant. I mean, absolutely brilliant.
So, for those people who have those noisy minds, how do you recommend they kind of calm them down?
Oh, there's a wonderful, and I will include this with the podcast. There's a wonderful exercise that I do, that I teach people. It's called the Breath of Love. And it's a 3-part, 1.5 breath series. You'd be amazed at who uses it. Some very high profile people, because it's a great way to get us out of our fear brain, which is the 2-second faster. Our brainstem is 2 seconds faster because it's our survival instinct. But it's not smart. And sometimes it's the first thing to get there and can hijack us and really get us, breathing in the top half of our lungs because we're under stress. But this simple breathing exercise, it's exhale first. And I mean, really wring your lungs out. It forces your frontal lobe to override your brainstem so that you can really, bring your limbic system and your amygdala back online. I told you I was a brain geek. There's a little bit of...
I was just going to say, yeah. I wonder if there were anybody else out there just did not totally get those words besides me.
Yeah, exactly. Like, but yeah, your brain, there's 3 parts to your brain, so what by forcing yourself to exhale, and I mean, really wring your lungs out, the smart part of your brain is overriding the survivor instinct. and saying that this is not life or death. And then you take a slow, deep breath in while you're soothing yourself. I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe. And then one more gentle exhale out very slowly. I'm loved, I'm loved, I'm loved. Because our brainstem is really only about 4 years old. And the only thing it recognizes is risk and reward. So the safe, I'm safe on the inhale takes care of the risk. And I'm loved on the exhale takes care of the reward. But that key part is that first exhale out. When you force yourself to breathe out and really wring your lungs out, you're flipping the switch in your brain so that the fear brain isn't hijacking you.
Wow, that's some great info. So now I know you're featured on E! Entertainment, one of my favorite shows. So what exactly do you do for them?
Well, I was lucky enough to do their January forecast this year, and got to do some predictions on couples. One of my favorite things to do is couple compatibility, and with hands as well, because it has to do with how we work together, and that was fun. I love that they brought me in to do that. But then from that, it spilled over. I do their monthly astrology newsletter and a couple of special reports for them. So you can catch that on their e-news digest that goes out.
So did you read any celebrity hands that you thought were compatible, not compatible, that you can talk about?
Well, very often in astrology, we can see the compatibility between people. Like two people that are so intriguing is Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner. And people want them to get back together. But she's going through a period that it's going to take her a couple of years to kind of figure out what she wants, while he's going through something that he's very definitely not wanting to be squeezed into a box. So they're both going through their own versions and their own struggle with understanding who they are and what they want. I see them parenting together, but I don't see them as being an easy match right now. Wouldn't say that never happened, but it would be at least 7 or 8 years down the line before they would be considered reasonably easy compatibility together again.
Aw. Well, yeah, that's what happens in life. So, one of the things I really love that you're doing this charity for young adults. Tell everybody what that is, and let's get some people on board for this, because it's a really nice charity.
The charity that I work with is Stepping Forward LA. It's a wonderful, Stepping Forward LA takes kids that are aging out of the foster care system because they turn 17, they're 17 years old, they're under the state's protection, they're living in a home, getting transportation to and from school. All of a sudden they turn 18, even if it's the middle of their senior year, and they're out on the street. Gone. All their resources shut down because they're now 18. So Stepping Forward LA takes these kids and helps them transition out of the foster care system and into an adult life where they are functioning and still have a community and support. Because as Beth Ryan, the founder of Stepping Forward LA, said, these kids have not had people around them that weren't paid to be around them for at least several years. So they need to know that there's a community of people that care about them. And I strongly recommend people who feel, as I do, that investing in people getting into our society in a healthy way is better than dealing with them when they've run afoul of the law or on Skid Row some years later because there was no support system for them, is a much better investment of our time and our money. So do love Stepping Forward LA.
Well, great. I hope people listen to this and they get on board, because it really is a great charity. Well, it was such a pleasure talking to you today. And if you want to learn more about Lisa, go to her website, www.truthinhand.com, book a reading, check out all her stuff. She's fantastic. Also, check out our Celebrity of the Month session on our website. Lisa will be featured one month, so stay tuned for that. And remember, you create your life, you create your future. This is Alicia Bowling with Beyond Logic.